Admiral Park was reading reports from her sensors with growing amazement. "Madam President, we're detecting over 300 ships from 67 different species. Many of them are using technology we've never seen before." The crystal being that had spoken earlier stepped forward again. "High Counselor, we are outnumbered 25 to 1. Perhaps it is time to listen to what these species are trying to tell us." Other council representatives were nodding in agreement. They had maintained their authority through isolation and the threat of force, but now they faced a united galaxy that was no longer afraid of them. Zephyx looked around at his fellow council members, seeing doubt in their expressions for the first time in millennia. "You would side with these primitives against your own kind." "We would side with justice," the crystal being replied. "For too long, we have justified our actions by claiming we were protecting younger species. But we were really protecting ourselves, our position, our control." President Santos watched the drama unfolding among the council representatives with fascination. This was the moment when the old order would either adapt or be swept away entirely. "High Counselor," she said gently, "it's not too late to be part of the solution. The galaxy has room for your wisdom and experience, but not for your domination." Zephix's form flickered one last time before settling into a shape that was almost human-like. When he spoke, his voice was tired and uncertain. "What do you propose?" "A new galactic government," President Santos replied. "One where every species has a voice, regardless of their age or technology level. One where knowledge is shared freely and worlds help each other grow instead of keeping each other down." The negotiations that followed lasted for 3 days and changed the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. The old Galaxy Council was dissolved, replaced by the Galactic Assembly, where every species, no matter how young or small, had an equal vote. The Quantum Gateway Network was open to all, allowing free travel and communication throughout the galaxy. Most importantly, the ancient prohibition against sharing advanced technology was lifted. Species were free to help each other develop, to share knowledge and resources, and to grow together instead of in isolation. Zephyx, despite his initial resistance, became one of the most valuable contributors to the new order. His millennia of experience proved invaluable in helping younger species avoid the mistakes that had led to the old system of control and fear. As for humanity, they found themselves at the center of a galactic renaissance. Earth became the headquarters of the new Galactic Assembly, and humans served as mediators and coordinators as hundreds of species worked together to build a better future. Sarah Chen, the archaeologist who had started it all by touching an alien device on Mars, was appointed as the first director of Galactic Archaeological Studies. Her job was to explore the ruins of ancient civilizations and learn from the mistakes of the past. In her first report to the Galactic Assembly, she wrote, "We have learned that the greatest discoveries come not from following the rules, but from having the courage to question them." Humanity's refusal to accept limitations didn't just free our own species, it freed an entire galaxy. The day humans said no to the ancient rules became known throughout the galaxy as Liberation Day, celebrated annually by hundreds of species as the moment when fear gave way to hope and isolation gave way to unity. And in the museums of Earth, displayed next to the alien communication device that changed everything, was a simple plaque that read, "Sometimes the most profound act of courage is simply refusing to be told what you cannot do." The decision was made. Earth would keep the alien communication device and continue learning about the galaxy, regardless of the Council's threats. It was a decision that would change the course of human history and challenge the established order that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. As news of the decision spread across Earth, reactions were mixed. Some people celebrated humanity's bold step into the galactic community. Others feared the consequences of defying beings with technology far beyond human understanding. But most were simply amazed to learn that Earth wasn't alone in the universe. In observatories around the world, scientists worked frantically to decode the flood of alien messages still pouring in through the communication device. The picture that emerged was both wonderful and terrible. The galaxy was rich with life and culture, but it was also controlled by an ancient system that kept most species in isolation and prevented them from reaching their full potential. As Earth's 7-day deadline approached, long-range sensors began detecting massive energy signatures moving toward the solar system. The Galaxy Council was coming, and they were bringing enough firepower to make good on their threats. But humanity had never backed down from a challenge, and they weren't about to start now. The day everything changed. The Council fleet arrived exactly when they said they would. 12 massive ships materialized at the edge of the solar system, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They didn't sneak in or try to hide their approach. The Council wanted Earth to see their power and understand the futility of resistance. President Maria Santos stood in the command center of the Luna Defense Station, watching the alien fleet through the station's main viewer. Each ship was unique, representing a different member species of the Galaxy Council. Some looked like crystalline structures that caught and reflected starlight. Others appeared to be made of living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid. All of them radiated power that made Earth's best warships look like toys. "How many are we looking at?" asked Admiral Jennifer Park, Earth's highest-ranking military officer. 12 capital ships, reported Lieutenant Commander Alex Thompson at the sensor station. Each one approximately 10 kilometers in length. Energy readings are beyond our measurement capabilities. President Santos nodded grimly. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of 37 ships, and the largest was barely 300 meters long. In terms of raw firepower, humanity was completely outmatched. But the president had learned something important from the messages they had received through the alien communication device. Power wasn't just about the size of your weapons. "Open a channel to the lead ship," she ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of an alien vessel. High Counselor Defiance appeared, his form shifting between different alien appearances as he had during his previous message. Behind him stood representatives of the other council species, all of them radiating an aura of ancient authority and barely contained power. "President of Earth," Defiance said, his voice carrying across space without any electronic distortion. "You have had 7 cycles to consider our generous offer. Have you come to your senses?" President Santos straightened her shoulders and looked directly at the alien leader. "High Counselor, we have indeed considered your offer. We decline. Earth will keep the communication device, and we will continue to learn about the galactic community." Several of the alien representatives made sounds that might have been surprise or anger. Defiance himself seemed genuinely shocked by her response. "You cannot be serious," he said. "Do you not understand the consequences of your defiance? We have maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years by ensuring that developing species remain isolated until they are mature enough to join the greater community." "And who decides when a species is mature enough?" President Santos asked. "You? A council of ancient civilizations who benefit from keeping younger species in the dark. We decide because we have the wisdom of ages," Defiance replied, his form becoming more solid and threatening. "We have seen what happens when primitive species gain access to advanced technology too quickly. Wars that consume entire sectors, weapons that can destroy stars, chaos that takes millennia to repair." President Santos smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Counselor, in the past week, we've received over 50,000 messages from species across the galaxy. Do you know what most of them told us?" Defiance didn't answer, but his form flickered with what might have been uncertainty. "They told us that the Council has been keeping them isolated for thousands of years, not for their own good, but to prevent them from challenging your authority. They told us about species that developed amazing technologies, only to have them confiscated by the Council for safety reasons. They told us about civilizations that asked for help during natural disasters, only to be told they weren't ready for Council assistance." The alien leader's form became more unstable, cycling rapidly between different appearances. "Those are lies spread by malcontents and rebels." "Are they?" President Santos activated a control on her chair, and the communication device from Mars began broadcasting the testimonies they had received. Dozens of alien voices spoke of oppression, of stolen technology, of species kept deliberately primitive to maintain the Council's control. For the first time in the conversation, Zephyx seemed genuinely disturbed. "Where did you get these transmissions?" "From your own network," President Santos replied. "The same network you've been using to spy on every species in the galaxy. The same network you thought you controlled completely." Behind Zephyx, the other council representatives were talking among themselves in languages that the translation system couldn't interpret. Their body language suggested confusion and growing alarm. "It doesn't matter," Zephyx said, his voice becoming harder. "You are one primitive species on one small world. Even if some younger races support you, they lack the power to challenge the established order." "You're right," President Santos agreed. "Individually, none of us can stand against you. But together." She smiled again. "Counselor, you should know that in the past 7 days, over 200 species have joined what we're calling the Galactic Liberation Network. We're sharing technology, resources, and most importantly, hope." The main screen split to show images from across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, beings of every conceivable form were working together, sharing knowledge that the Council had kept secret for millennia. Species that had been isolated for thousands of years were finally talking to each other, learning from each other, and supporting each other. "This is madness," Zephyx said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "You will destroy the stability we have worked so hard to maintain." "We're going to replace it with something better," President Santos replied. "Freedom. The right of every intelligent species to reach its full potential without asking permission from self-appointed guardians." One of the other council representatives, a being that looked like it was made of living crystal, stepped forward. "High Counselor, perhaps we should reconsider our position. If so many species are unhappy with our guidance." "Silence," Zephyx commanded. "We do not negotiate with primitives or their sympathizers." He turned back to President Santos. "You have one final opportunity to submit. Surrender the communication device and accept Council authority, or we will be forced to quarantine your entire system." President Santos looked around the command center at her staff. Admiral Park nodded encouragingly. Lieutenant Commander Thompson gave her a thumbs up. These people trusted her to make the right decision for all of humanity. "Counselor," she said quietly, "humanity has a saying. Give me liberty or give me death. We choose liberty." Zephyx's form solidified into something that was clearly meant to be intimidating, with multiple arms and glowing red eyes. "So be it. All ships, prepare to establish quarantine protocols." But before the Council fleet could act, something unprecedented happened. Ships began appearing throughout the solar system. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them. They came from dozens of different species, all members of the newly formed Galactic Liberation Network. The Androndan Collective sent their sleek silver vessels that moved like liquid mercury through space. The Centauri Alliance contributed their colorful ships that looked like enormous flowers made of metal and energy. Even species that had never before left their home systems sent whatever vessels they could manage. "This is impossible," Zephyx whispered, staring at the growing fleet surrounding his forces. "How did they get here so quickly?" "The same way you did," President Santos replied. "Through the quantum gateway network that you've been hiding from everyone. The network that every species has the right to use." The truth was even more shocking than Zephyx realized. The communication device hadn't just allowed Earth to talk to other species. It had given them access to the quantum gateway system that allowed instantaneous travel across the galaxy. Humanity had shared this knowledge with every species in the Liberation Network, breaking the Council's monopoly on faster-than-light travel. The forbidden discovery. Commander Sarah Chen wiped the red dust from her helmet visor as she stood on the Martian surface. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ancient canyon, where her excavation team had been working for 3 months. She had led archaeological missions on 4 different planets, but Mars always felt special. It was humanity's first real step into the cosmos. Her communication device crackled to life. "Commander Chen, you need to see this immediately," came the excited voice of Dr. James Rodriguez, her chief archaeologist. "We found something that doesn't belong here." Sarah made her way down into the excavation site, a deep crater that had been carved into Mars millions of years ago. The team had been searching for signs of ancient microbial life, but what they found was far more significant. At the bottom of the dig site, partially buried under layers of red rock, was a structure that clearly wasn't natural. The object was roughly the size of a small building, made from a material that seemed to shift between silver and blue depending on the angle of light. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that definitely weren't human. Dr. Rodriguez stood next to it with his scanner, shaking his head in amazement. "The metal is unlike anything we've ever seen," he explained as Sarah approached. "It's not corroded at all, despite being buried here for what appears to be thousands of years. The electromagnetic readings are off the charts." Sarah circled the structure slowly, studying every detail. As the commander of the Mars Archaeological Division, she had seen plenty of unusual rock formations and mineral deposits, but this was clearly artificial. The symbols weren't random scratches. They formed patterns that suggested some kind of language or mathematical system. "Have you tried touching it?" she asked. Dr. Rodriguez shook his head. "We were waiting for you. The energy readings spike whenever anyone gets too close." Sarah removed her gloves and reached toward the surface of the alien structure. The moment her bare hand made contact with the strange metal, the entire object began to glow. The symbols pulsed with soft light, and a low humming sound filled the air around them. Suddenly, Sarah's mind was flooded with information, images, sounds, and concepts that she had never experienced before rushed through her consciousness. She saw vast cities floating in space, creatures of incredible beauty and terrible power, and most importantly, a network that connected countless worlds across the galaxy. She stumbled backward, gasping for air inside her helmet. "It's a communication device," she whispered. "Not just any communication device. It's connected to every intelligent species in the galaxy." Dr. Rodriguez looked skeptical. "That's impossible. We would have detected radio signals from other civilizations by now." "Not radio signals," Sarah explained, her voice filled with wonder. "Something much more advanced. Quantum entanglement communication, instantaneous across any distance." She looked at the glowing structure with new understanding. "This thing has been here all along, waiting for someone to activate it." Over the next few hours, Sarah and her team worked to understand the alien device. It seemed to respond to human thought and emotion, becoming brighter when they were curious and dimmer when they were afraid. Slowly, they began to decode some of the symbols and understand how the communication network functioned. What they discovered changed everything. The galaxy was full of intelligent life, hundreds of species spread across thousands of worlds. But they weren't allowed to communicate freely. Something called the Galaxy Council controlled all interstellar communication, deciding which species could talk to each other and which had to remain isolated. Earth had been marked as a developing world and was supposed to remain cut off from the galactic community until the Council decided humans were ready. The communication device on Mars was supposed to stay buried and inactive until that time came, which, according to the Council's records, wouldn't be for another 1,000 years. But Sarah had accidentally activated it. And worse, her thoughts and emotions had been broadcast across the entire galactic network when she first touched the device. Every intelligent species in the galaxy now knew that humans existed and that they had found the forbidden communication system. The reaction was immediate and intense. Within hours, the device began receiving thousands of messages from across the galaxy. Some were welcoming, others were warnings, but most were expressions of shock and fear. Sarah realized that what she had done was forbidden by ancient laws that had governed the galaxy for thousands of years. Commander called Lieutenant Mike Foster from the communications tent they had set up near the dig site. "We're getting a priority message from Earth Command. They want to know why every radio telescope on the planet is picking up alien signals." Sarah closed her eyes. The secret was out, and there was no going back. She had inadvertently announced humanity's presence to the entire galaxy, breaking rules that were older than human civilization. But as she looked at the alien device still glowing with soft blue light, she felt no regret. Humanity deserved to know about the larger universe, regardless of what some ancient council thought. The first official response from the Galaxy Council arrived exactly 24 hours after Sarah's initial contact with the device. It wasn't a welcome message. High Counselor Zefix, speaking for the ruling body of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations, delivered a stern ultimatum. The message appeared as both sound and images directly in the minds of everyone near the alien device. Zefix was a being of incredible age and power, with features that seemed to shift between different alien forms as he spoke. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Primitive species of the third planet, the message began. You have violated the sacred protocols that have maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years. The communication device you have activated was placed in protective isolation for your own safety and the safety of all established civilizations. Sarah listened to the message with growing anger. The Council was treating humanity like children who had touched something they weren't supposed to touch. You will immediately cease all use of the communication device, Zefix continued. You will surrender the device to Council representatives who will arrive at your world within 7 standard cycles. Any attempt to continue using the device or to share its technology will result in the immediate quarantine of your entire solar system. When the message ended, Sarah's team looked at her expectantly. As mission commander, the decision of how to respond fell to her. She thought about the thousands of welcoming messages they had received from younger civilizations, species that seemed excited to meet humanity. She thought about the warnings they had received from other species, telling them that the Council kept most of the galaxy in isolation and fear. Get me a direct line to Earth Command, she ordered. It's time our leaders knew what we're really dealing with. The emergency session of the United Earth Council took place in the secured chambers beneath Geneva. President Maria Santos, a former astronaut who had become Earth's first planetary president just 2 years earlier, listened to Sarah's report with growing amazement and concern. You're telling me, President Santos said slowly, that there's an entire galactic civilization out there, and they've been deliberately keeping us isolated. That's exactly what I'm telling you, Sarah replied via quantum communication link from Mars. And they're demanding we give up the device and go back to ignorance. Defense Minister Chen Wei leaned forward. What kind of military power are we talking about? If they can travel between stars, their weapons technology must be far beyond ours. Unknown, Sarah admitted. But based on the messages we've received from other species, the Council rules through fear and isolation rather than direct military action. They keep species separated so they can't unite against Council authority. President Santos was quiet for a long moment. Around the Council chamber, the leaders of Earth's major nations waited for her decision. Finally, she spoke. Commander Chen, I want you to send a message back to this Council. Tell them that Earth appreciates their concern, but we decline their generous offer to remain ignorant. We're keeping the device. The room erupted in nervous murmurs. Several council members began speaking at once, questioning the wisdom of defying a galactic authority. President Santos raised her hand for silence. Ladies and gentlemen, she said firmly, throughout human history, we have always chosen knowledge over ignorance, exploration over isolation, and freedom over safety. We didn't survive ice ages, plagues, and wars just to hide in the corner when we finally found out we're not alone in the universe. Foreign Minister Angela Rice voiced what everyone was thinking. Madam President, they could destroy our entire planet. They could, President Santos agreed. But if we give up now, we'll never know what we might have become. Besides, based on Commander Chen's report, there are species out there who want to help us. We won't be facing this alone.